Hi, St. Louis. How are you? Just a little bit of hand sanitizer here before we get started to visit with all of you about an update on COVID-19 today. You know that at the end of the day yesterday, we had 69 positive cases in St. Louis. We'll have an update for you on numbers probably towards 5 o'clock, the 5 o'clock time. But we know that our cases are continuing to increase. And so we're concerned about that. We know you're concerned about that. So we're here to answer your questions. I'll give just a little recap. You know that last Saturday we issued a stay-at-home order, which went into effect on Monday night. So we're on day 4 of our stay-at-home order. I know that's tough. I know many of you are at home. You can go to the grocery store if you need to. Don't go every day. If you can help it, go for a week. Obviously, you can go get medicine or any essentials that you need for your family. And you can also take a walk, but keep 6 feet apart. If you're at the grocery store line, keep 6 feet apart. This is really important. We have seen our number of cases just in the city of St. Louis increase from 1 about 10 days ago, 11 days ago perhaps, to 69 as of yesterday. So we are just trying to make sure that we're communicating the messages to everyone here that staying at home is a really important thing. Before we start with questions, let me just take a minute to say that I know there are a lot of people working and they are providing essential services, so they have to continue to work. And so thank you to our police officers, to our firefighters, our EMS workers, our paramedics, our street department, the folks who are keeping your water running. Our water department, you know, the city owns its own water department. It is still an essential service. And thank you to our grocery store workers. We appreciate you and know that you are working long hours. So perhaps it's time now to take a question or two. Kyle?
Mayor, our first question that we got on Facebook Live, people want to know what is happening with the parks and the playgrounds. Are there any plans to make any changes there?
Well, just this morning, we made a change, and now all the playgrounds are closed. If you go to the city has 75 playgrounds, by the way. If you go to a playground this afternoon, you're going to see a sign that says playground temporarily closed. And that's for your safety, the safety of your kids. We know now that this COVID-19 virus can live on hard surfaces for a while. Some say up to 3 days, some say 1 to 2 days, but regardless, kids playing on playground equipment is not advisable at this point in time. So we've closed all our playgrounds. It's a temporary closure. Take a walk, let the kids run around and play. Try to stay 6 feet apart, but no playground equipment, please.
Mayor, we did get a question about the federal stimulus package that just passed the House of Representatives today, and the President's expected to sign it. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that and the money St. Louis could see?
Well, this is the third stimulus package that Congress has passed, and we're grateful for that because we know that this stay-at-home order is really hurting business, both small business and big business. We know that 80% of the people in our country work for small business, and many of those workers are off. So as you know, there is a $1,200 direct to individuals if you make less than $75,000 a year. That's supposed to be coming in April. In addition to that, we should get additional block grant money, additional money for homeless services, and additional money to reimburse the city for the extraordinary expenses that we've incurred so far.
We have a couple of questions that are all tied into protective equipment for our first responders, police, fire, EMS, and healthcare workers.
PPE, it's called, personal protective equipment. We have been sourcing this everywhere we can find it. So masks, goggles, hand sanitizer, face shields. We are trying to get enough. We have enough for right this minute, but we're going through it at a very quick rate. The hospitals are also trying to get enough. As we speak, we have a truck in Jeff City that we believe is going to be able to bring back some PPE to us to be used by our emergency first responders and the folks who are continuing to keep our city's services running.
So a couple of questions about construction as an exempt business under the stay-at-home order and why that is.
Right. So in general, most construction is outside, and most construction, it's also fairly easy to maintain that 6-foot distance. When we put that in as an exempt business, we thought about some things. For example, can the highway department continue to work on Highway 44? We all know Highway 44 has been under construction for a long time. We thought, yes, that would be an activity that could go on without exposing additional folks. We also thought about the NGA site, which is under construction right now. It's mostly earthwork at this point in time. And so we decided that construction was an essential service at this point in time. And the Association of General Contractors came together with union contractors to set out some rules for construction site in order to follow social distancing and limit exposure. And they've also set up a hotline for any construction worker who thinks that there might be a problem on a job site.
So Mary, you've mentioned our stay-at-home order, which is 30 days mandatory, ends at least April 22nd. Mm-hmm. Some questions, people are wondering, how is the city enforcing that, and what happens if someone doesn't abide by it?
So if you see, first of all, if you don't abide by it, it's a misdemeanor. But if you see someone that you think is not abiding by it, you should really call our health department if it's a serious thing, which is 657-1499. If it's something a little less serious, call Citizen Service Bureau, 622-4800, and report that, and someone from the health department will call on that business or individual if that is the case. Also, use your own good common sense. If you see a group of kids maybe on a playground, just remind them that playgrounds are closed today. So there's some things that you can do and some things that certainly the city needs to do.
Can you talk about testing capacity in all portions of the city?
Yes, we need more tests. Everyone does. You cannot turn on the TV or pick up the newspaper without realizing that we need more tests and more testing capacity. Excuse me. We do have tests being given all over our city. So the first thing, if you think you might have an issue, is to call your doctor or go to call your federally qualified health center. All the federally qualified health centers in the city are giving tests at this point.
Is there still going to be street cleaning during the stay-at-home order?
There is street cleaning.
We're getting
Excuse me, I've got water right there.
Let me grab it.
Thank you. Sorry about that, guys. If I talk too much, I'm beginning to cough a little. Thanks for your patience. So we will still have street cleaning. Number one, there's one individual who runs the street cleaner, and so there's no exposure there. And secondly, we just want to keep our city as clean as possible.
License plate registrations, are they still due on time, and can I come down to City Hall and get my driver's license?
Good question. The driver's license renewal office is closed, and everyone who's got a either your driver's license or your plates that need to be renewed in either March or April, you have an automatic 60-day extension. So you don't need to be concerned about that. Earlier this week, before we closed the license office, I guess last week really, we had a lot of people coming because we were the only license office, renewal office left in the city of St. Louis. So we appreciate that 60-day extension for everyone.
Actually, one of our reporter friends from public radio is watching and asked, do you think that the stay-at-home order will be in effect in the city longer than April 22nd?
I think that's possible, but we don't know the answer to that today. As I mentioned earlier, we are on day 4, just day 4 of the stay-at-home order. So if we're able to flatten the curve to tamp down the spread of COVID-19, perhaps it won't have to be renewed, but renewal is on the table.
Do you think the state needs to consider following the actions that you and Mayor Lucas took in Kansas City in issuing a stay-at-home order for all of Missouri?
I do. I think there are 114 counties in Missouri. It's true that some of them don't have any cases right now, but this is a very fluid society that we live in. And we know that we have community spread. And so I think it's just a good idea for everyone to stay home.
A couple of small business questions about economic recovery. Can you tell people about some of the resources or various initiatives in the community right now to help small businesses?
Yes, thank you for that question. So we know that small businesses are really, really hurting. There is on the St. Louis website, there is a economic support and recovery resources. I know you can't read this, but if you go on our website, you will see it. But just a couple of examples. The city of St. Louis put $400,000 into a fund. St. Louis County SLEDP put $350,000 into a fund. That's good for $5,000 no interest loans to small businesses. And our hope is that that's emergency money, and that then from there you can take advantage of some of the federal Small Business Administration loans and programs that are out there.
Parking in the city, is it being enforced right now? That's one of the questions we got about meters.
So the treasurer announced, I think, a week ago that that she would no longer be doing any parking enforcement in the city. So meters are free for now, folks. So have fun while it lasts.
You've got about 1,000 viewers at this point, Mary. You might want to say hello, reset, to update cases.
Sure. So thanks to those of you who have joined in the last few minutes. But one of the things I said at the outset was that we had 69 cases at the end of the day yesterday. We'll have a new report at the end of the day today. But that's an increase of 16 cases over the day before. So we know that a number of cases are increasing. That's why it's so important to adhere to the stay-at-home order. And you know, I know most St. Louisans are, if they can, adhering to that order. They are staying home and they're working from home if they can. The other thing, though, that I want to recognize and thank are all those people who can't stay at home, who are essential service providers like police, fire, corrections, the street department, refuse. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. We're still picking up the trash. We have to do that, of course. Our hospital workers and the grocery store workers who are working very hard and long hours. So thanks to everybody who is working. I hope that all of you who are not working in your office or at your place of business now, when you have the opportunity, will say thank you to those folks who are working.
What if you are facing the possibility, this is a question we got about evictions or people who can't make rent during the stay-at-home order?
So evictions, there are no evictions right now. And we got an order from the 22nd Judicial Circuit that said that there won't be any evictions during this stay-at-home order. Now, anyone who is having trouble paying their rent or anticipates that they will be having trouble paying their rent because they're missing hours or they're missing a paycheck, I would really encourage you to talk to your landlord. Try to work out something with them. Maybe you can pay part now, maybe you can pay part later. It's always good to show good faith to do what you can so that you don't end up with an issue a month or 2 or 3 from now.
Daycare is an issue that's kind of come up a couple of times from questions. What kind of daycare is available in the city, and are they open to the public?
Daycare centers are open for the kids of first responders, police, fire, health workers. Otherwise, you know, daycare center it's impossible if you're watching a bunch of 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds to enforce 6-foot distancing, I think. So we really are trying to reduce the number of kids that are in daycare so that the daycare for the people who really have to go to work is available. And I know that that's a huge issue for many of you who are still having to go to work and probably maybe relying on a relative or someone to watch your kids while you have to go to work.
Mayor, should people use public transportation during this time?
So public transportation is still running, fortunately. Our buses and Metrolink, they're running on a reduced schedule. They are running because we know that a lot of people who are in essential functions, healthcare workers, grocery store workers, even police, fire, refuse, corrections, we know that they take public transportation to work. So it's really important that public transportation stay running. If you don't have to go anywhere, please don't go anywhere. They're trying to space out people on the buses. The buses are going in and getting fully cleaned twice a day, disinfected, so that is not an issue.
People at Forest Park are saying they're still seeing people playing tennis, playing basketball, they're barbecuing. Why can't we just close our parks and the other sort of courts and sports amenities at our parks?
Well, we did, as you know, close playgrounds. Closing parks is, I think, a really tough one. This is a challenge mentally stress-wise for people. So we think getting out and going for a walk in the park, as long as you'll stay 6 feet apart, is probably good physically, but also good mentally for people. It really has to do with the social distancing with regard to being outside and with regard to getting a little exercise and breathing a little fresh air. So we don't think closing parks, and we have 109 parks in the city of St. Louis, 6 major parks and 103 smaller parks. And so we do think it's important that people continue to be able to go to parks and just blow off a little steam. Work in your yard, stay at home.
Why not close all businesses in the city of St. Louis during a stay-at-home order?
Well, closing all businesses would mean closing all grocery stores. You got a 30-day stay-at-home order here. I don't think that's realistic. It would mean closing all gas stations. I don't think that's a good idea. People, first responders, a lot of people who still are providing essential services have to get to work. They've got to be able to buy gas. And so it is a matter of keeping as many people at home as possible and practicing social distancing. Closing down everything would be an incredible, even a bigger hardship on people.
How many people have been tested so far? How many people have been hospitalized? And why don't we know more about who those people are?
So we have 69 positive cases in the city of St. Louis. We are waiting on the results from, I think, 26 more cases, and we are monitoring around 150 people. These were the numbers at the end of the day yesterday. And so that's in the city of St. Louis, but statewide, I believe there have been about 850 tests given through the end of the day yesterday. We need more tests. We need to be able to test more individuals. And what was the last part of that question?
Why don't we know more about?
Why don't we know more? Thank you. Why don't we know more about the individuals? Because medical information is private. HIPAA prevents us from telling you anything about someone who's sick, whether they're sick with COVID-19 or whether they're ill with something else. I think that's a good thing for most of us, and it's just not an elected official's role. Now, there is information available because sometimes that individual or their family, they share that information. That's perfectly fine, but government cannot share that information. We know that in the city of St. Louis that there is a case in every zip code in the city. But it's not up to me to stand here and read off the names and addresses for you of the people who have tested positive. I think that would be an incredible invasion of their privacy. And I know you want to know, and I know the media especially wants to know, because we're getting lots of inquiries about, why won't you tell us everything you know? You know what? Because our responsibility is first to the people.
When will the numbers kind of level off? When do you think we start to curve downward?
So when do we begin to flatten the curve? We don't know that. We're 4 days into this stay-at-home order. Yesterday morning, I was on the phone with the heads of the 3 hospital systems, BJC, SSM, and Mercy. They are all doing modeling for when will the peak hit. They don't know for sure. They're thinking the latter part of April, mid to late April. But it just really depends on how much this stay-at-home order, how much it actually flattens the curve. So we have a way to go on this. We are on day 4, as I keep saying, and I know for many of you it feels like it's been a lifetime. So thank you for your tremendous cooperation to this. You can tell, I'm looking out my window right here, and you can tell there's almost no one on the roads. That's good. People of St. Louis are great people. They're always going to try to help us flatten this curve and to follow the rules. So thank you to everybody for that, because it's so important.
So why is City Hall still open, and what services remain if I needed to come down?
Very few services to the public are open in City Hall. If you needed to drop off some building permits to be reviewed for a project, you could drop those off. Other than that, very few services are available. The license collector's office is still open with a very skeleton staff, but most of that can wait, or it can be done online. So very few visitors or members of the public need to come to City Hall right now.
Has the city thought about putting any PSAs or messaging on area billboards or using your smart kiosks?
So there are PSA messages on the kiosks, on the smart kiosks. There are also two billboards, digital billboards in the city that have messages. One is at Highway 40 and Kings Highway, I think it is. The other is 44 in Jefferson. And the ads are actually pretty cute. That may not be the right word, but one of them, for example, says, "Shouldn't you be at home?" Question mark. And so they are reminders. We are trying to use every communication tool that we have to get the message out to people. We know some of you are watching on Facebook, some of you are watching on Instagram, some of you read Twitter, some of you do none, some people do none of the social media. So we're reaching them where we can on the main TV stations, on the radio stations. I've recorded PSAs, both a 10-second and a 30-second PSA, and provided it to virtually all of the radio stations here in the St. Louis region. I haven't heard them played yet, but I hope to.
A few more questions, Mayor. Can you talk about SNAP benefits for people during COVID-19? Is the state still funding that, and what resources are available for people who might need food?
Yes. So SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition. It is food stamps and under other names, and the state is still funding that. But in addition to that, some of you know that we have 35 different sites around the city of St. Louis. You can find this on our website, where kids under 18 and under can get a grab and go bag, which is breakfast and lunch. Doesn't matter if you are in that school or not. You can go there from 8 to noon, grab and go a breakfast and lunch, because we know that there are a lot of people who are under a lot of financial stress right now. We want to make sure that food is available to them.
This is a good question. First, Pearson wants to know, Mayor, are you concerned about a false sense of security, knowing that very likely hundreds, if not thousands of people are actually walking around infected with COVID-19, but we don't know it because we don't have access to testing?
Thank you, Verse. As I said a couple of times during this little broadcast here, we need more tests. We know there are people walking around with COVID-19. I don't have any false sense of security. Here, where I'm standing right here, we have the interpreter who's standing at probably 8 feet behind me here, and we have a couple of staff people over here that are at least 6 feet apart. That's why we continue to come on and sort of pound this message home. I know some people are getting sick and tired of hearing it. I've heard that a couple of times, like, enough already. But frankly, bear with us on this. Help us communicate this to your friends, your neighbors, anybody who thinks this is not serious, because it's very serious. I don't think there's any, I hope there's not a false sense of security, because we know a number of people do have this.
Dennis Gorg wants to know, how, as our leader and as the mayor, how has your daily life changed? We see you continue to go to work, which we all appreciate, but how has your life changed during this health emergency?
Hi, Dennis. Dennis is a longtime friend. So my life has changed in a couple of ways. One, I am in the office every day with a skeleton crew of people to try to handle questions and try to keep the wheels on, as we say. But I'm not going out to public events. You don't see me going to any meetings or doing anything like that. We have meetings on, WebEx or through conference calling, have a lot of that. So it is unusual for me to be in the office all day, every day. So that has changed. And it's long days, but this is the time that I think we all have to come together and do the things that we need to do.
Just combining a few topics and questions here. People want to know what the city's doing to ensure that COVID-19 isn't introduced into both of our correctional facilities.
Yes, thank you for that question. First of all, I just picked this up. This is a thermometer, and everyone's getting, and whether they come into the city hall or corrections facilities or whatever, they're getting, if I can turn this on, I'll show you how it works. It's pretty cool. Everybody, with this digital thermometer, you can take the temperature. Did I get it? Apparently I didn't turn it on right, but here we go. So everybody gets their temperature taken.
Your body temperature is 97.7 degrees Fahrenheit.
You might not have been able to hear that, but my temperature is 97.7. So the question, though, had to do with how are we doing this at our corrections facilities? And we're taking people's temperatures. We are keeping people as spread out as possible. As you may have seen, a number of people have been released from jail on their own recognizance. There are a few issues with that having to do with a few of the people that have been released. But for the most part, we didn't have anyone in our jails that wasn't there on a very serious crime. So, you know, we are just trying very hard to make sure that cleanliness, separation, and that folks aren't exposed.
Don wants to know, what is the city doing, or how about the homeless being checked in on them and, you know, protecting them during COVID-19?
Mm-hmm. So our outreach workers are checking in on everyone who is still on the street, and we are every single day trying to persuade those folks to go into shelter. We truly believe that folks are better off in shelter than they are on the street. But they don't always agree on that, and so we have not been able to get everyone to go into shelter. We also have a partnership with St. Louis County for some beds if homeless people do need to be quarantined, and we are actively looking at expanding the number of beds available to us. The weather is getting nicer, and that means fewer people are willing to go into shelter than previously. But we know that we have to be prepared for healthy homeless individuals to have shelter, for anyone who might need to be quarantined to have shelter, and anyone who may test positive to be sheltered. We also know that our homeless population is a very vulnerable population, and so we are checking on them. Our outreach workers are checking on them and trying to get them in. Last point on homelessness, there are a couple of encampments in St. Louis. We know about them, and we have followed the CDC guidelines on that, and we are not breaking up those encampments at this point in time because CDC has said they're really better off where they are.
Okay, 3-minute warning, Mayor.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Are bookstores under the stay-at-home order considered an essential business?
They are not considered an essential business. But they can deliver a book to you, or they can do things online, and so they aren't open for normal retail business.
This question was a while ago, and I don't remember who asked, but how is the Board of Aldermen planning to do business when they return in April? So
the Board of Aldermen is returning at the end of April. And to the extent that there need to be hearings, whether it's the Board of Aldermen or any other city board, we have a methodology now where we can comply with the Sunshine Act and make it available to the public, but do it electronically or through WebEx or call-in.
Okay, free for all, Mayor. You've got like
free for all?
3 minutes left.
Okay, 3 minutes. I'm going to use that 3 minutes to say thank you. Thank you to the people of St. Louis for sticking with us on this. St. Louis, we are a pretty tight-knit community. And I know that this is hard on you to stay home or to stay in your house, but it's for the greater good. So I just want to say thank you to those of you who are staying home, who are working from home, and thank you to our first responders. Thank you, police officers. Thank you, firefighters, our corrections officers, our refuse workers, street department. Now I know I'm leaving our health department, for goodness sake, who is working round the clock on this, doing contact tracing and trying to make sure that we all have the information that we need. So thank you, everyone. Thanks to the Facebook world out there for tuning in today. Appreciate you, and we'll be back to you Monday. Thank you so much.